Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Heat Chronicles. My name is Amir. Got Martel joining us today. Before we get started on today's episode, make sure to go to Martel's channel, the Miami Heat Zone podcast, and subscribe. So, for today's episode, Martel, I want to talk about a report that I saw on Bleacher Report, and they had a mock trade that suggested that the Miami Heat should call the Washington Wizards and trade Tyler Herro for Kyle Kuzma. And so I know we've talked about this in the past. We've all made videos about Kyle Kuzma. We knew last year he was on the trade block, and I think the asking price was really high. I think he was one of those guys that they're asking for 2 first-round picks, which was unrealistic, and which is why he wasn't moved at the trade deadline and still hasn't been moved. But what are your thoughts on trading Tyler Herro and adding Kyle Kuzma, especially after we've started adding some bigs like drafting Khalil Ware? Does he make sense on this roster, especially also with Jovic becoming a starter throughout last season? So, what are your thoughts?
Well, Kyle Kuzma, he brings that versatility. He's averaging 22.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists, shooting 46.3% from the field. I think a lot of people, they don't really give him enough credit. People will say, well, he was a bust or he's really not that good, but people forget, he had to play with Kobe Bryant, who was hogging the ball. Then he went with LeBron and AD, and he was the third option. And they won a championship. So at 28 years old, I think he definitely fits next to Bam Adebayo in terms of the athleticism, floor spacing, versatility, defense, rebounding, which we all need. I don't care what anyone says, the Miami Heat could use Kyle Kuzma. And I just think about it, if we're continuing to run back this main core of Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler, and it's clearly not working for various reasons, we really can't just say fit. It's injuries, it's fit. Like, there's multiple things. And the fact that we haven't been able to figure that out, because we can continue to shuffle around the board in terms of the role players, even though we really haven't done the best job at that. But if it's not working with Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam, obviously somebody has to go. I know a lot of people point their finger at Tyler because he's that third guy. It's always the third guy who gets moved. Obviously, they're not going to trade their franchise piece and Bam Adebayo and their best player in Jimmy Butler. So in terms of the Kyle Kuzma fit, I definitely think he would fit on this roster. I just don't think the Washington Wizards would take on another Jordan Poole in a sense, because that's what Tyler Hero is. He's another Jordan Poole type player.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good fit. Could you imagine? We're talking about our backcourt and the fit and the size and like the defensive liability of starting Tyler and Terry. Imagine Tyler Hero and Jordan Poole, right? Like just especially Jordan Poole. I mean, he is obviously worse than Tyler Hero. I think Tyler's a better player overall than Poole and has a higher IQ, but still that fit would be hilarious. Like those guys would just be taking turns, taking step back, fade away like 3 pointers. Like they're not going to have a good pick and roll person like Bam that can help at least Tyler get into the lane. So that would be interesting. That's a good point. I don't think that fit makes sense. But in terms of contract with Kuzma, he has a better contract than Tyler. Better in the sense that he got a 4-year 90 million. Tyler got a 4-year 120 million. So they both have 3 years left on their contract. And so Tyler's going to be making like 90 million versus Kuzma, who's going to be making like 60 something over the next 3 seasons. So it's a friendlier contract, and you get 30 million back off your books in 2026, 2027. And Kuzma has an interesting contract because he actually is making less per year. So he got more money up front. He got 25, 23, 21, and 19. So next season he's making 23, but by the end of his contract he's making 19. Tyler's obviously goes up like a traditional contract. Um, so I like how you mentioned though that he has had a hard time playing with these superstars, and he had to be confined within a specific role. But Kuzma averaged 21 points per game the season before, 22 points, like you mentioned. So, what is Miami's like one of their biggest issues? Scoring, right? And is Nikola Jovic ready right now to give you even 15 or 16 points per game starting next to Bam? No,
But
I
see,
don't think
Amir,
so.
not to cut you off, bro, but that's my problem with Miami Heat fans. One, we have to be realistic. We do not have the assets to make a major move. Okay, and then also two, don't get me wrong, do we have decent role players? Yes. Because I've seen all these other teams move around these guys. However, no one's going to want a Duncan Robinson for that contract, and no one's going to want a Tyler Hero for that contract. And then also, too, it's like, I don't understand why Miami Heat fans think that Jovic and Jaime are going to take this incredible leap. Is it possible? Yes,
Hmm.
especially Jaime because Jaime had a pretty good season for a rookie. But just to say that Nikola Jovic is going to take this insane leap is very very hard because when you look across the NBA, it's hard for young players just to go from averaging like what 5 points a game to now they're averaging 15 points a game. I just think that's a very big ask of our role players.
Yeah, look at it took Bam, like he averaged what 8 or 9 like as a rookie, and then he got to 12 and to like 14, and then eventually 16, and then 19 and 20. So it took him time as well. I mean, obviously he wasn't the most offensively gifted prospect, so it made sense that it took more time for him to develop. But it does take sometimes 3 seasons or so. And like Nico's only, yes, he's going into his year 3, but he's played 61 games total, Martel, 15 games, and then 40 something, right? Like, so it's not like he's played 160 games in those 2 seasons like a Jaime, right? Like, who's a little more advanced, obviously, for your um, collegiate athlete. So, yeah, and again, Kalel Ware too. Also, it's not like he's going to come in and start day one. I see people in the comments thinking Kalel Ware is going to start automatically, and
Yeah,
that
that's
Spo.
crazy.
Do you think Spo is going to push Bam back to his like the four natural, like his natural position immediately? Like, come on, like Kalel Ware is a 15th overall pick. He's not a top 5 pick where you like have to play him, or the Heat are bad enough where, like, or he's good enough where they have to play him, or the Heat are bad enough where they need to play him, right? Like to tank to a certain degree. So they're in a weird spot, but I think Kuz could be interesting, especially because the depth that we would get at the 4 and 5. Then, like, imagine him starting and then Nico coming off the bench with Kalel Ware, and then you still have Kevin Love off the bench, and then you still have Haywood Highsmith potentially as well. So then, like, that would really add to the depth if we can trade Hero for Kuzma. So I'm open to it only for Hero probably at this point. That'd probably be the best trade, but again, it doesn't make sense for the Wizards. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and also don't forget to subscribe to Martel's Miami Heat Zone podcast.